In the race for the White House, it's a big night for Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump as rival Ted Cruz suspends his campaign. VOA's Peter Clody goes one-on-one with the founder of Ghana's People's Progressive Party. And word to the Obamas and the British royals, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is here to pump you up. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Kenyan police say they have arrested a suspected key member of an Islamist militant group that was plotting attacks similar to the 2013 Westgate shopping mall attack that killed at least 67 people. Police say the foiled plot included plans for a biological terror attack using anthrax, an infectious bacteria that spreads rapidly once spores get into the body. Now, according to a police statement, Mohammed Abdi Ali was arrested last Friday as a suspected member of an East African militant group with links to Islamic State. Police say Ali worked as a medical intern at a hospital in eastern Kenya before his arrest and also studied at a university in neighboring Uganda. Police also revealed that Ali has been engaged in the active radicalization recruitment of university students and other Kenyan youth into terrorism networks. Now, the police statement goes on to say that two suspected accomplices of Ali, Nusaiba Muhammad Haji, who's also his wife, and Fatuma Muhammad Hanshi, had been arrested in neighboring Uganda. Joining us on the phone from Nairobi with more insight on this story is reporter Mike Njenga with Kenya's Citizen TV. Good evening, Mike.
A very good evening to you, Makori.
Yes, now this is a big story. First thing we'd like to know is that authorities said they actually did get hold of any anthrax that was being possibly used, planned to be used.
Well, Makori, currently, I spoke with the police earlier on about an hour ago, and so far they've not arrested, they've not confiscated any of the anthrax, but they are highly suspecting that on the 29th of April, this group led by Mohammed Abdi Ali was going to do some stuff around here as far as biochemical terror is concerned. But so far, speaking to one of the police commanders, he told me they have not yet placed hands on the anthrax virus, but they are combing through to get to know where and when these things got into the country and where they are.
Now, the police said that this gentleman had been involved in radicalizing students, especially the universities. Has there been any students or any Kenyans who have been arrested or at least been questioned as regarding the connection to ISIS because of this kind of network?
Well, Vincent, when it came to the suspect, when the suspect was nabbed in Makueni County, it's one of the 47 counties in Kenya, he is an intern. He went to school in Kampala International University where he was doing medicine. And there are several other suspects who are said to be on the loose. They have Ahmed Hish and Farah Dagane. Two of them who are suspected to be in Kenya currently, and police are requesting each and every person who may have come across these people, be it family, be it friends, be it relatives. They're saying that anybody who will be keeping these people is an accomplice. So far, nobody is being questioned, but apart from Mohammed Abdi Ali, who is in custody and being questioned currently, no one else has been arrested. Vincent, there have been a lot of cases where we're seeing very learned young people joining the radical group. So far, as I spoke to the police earlier on, they're saying investigations are underway. Apart from Mohammed Abdi Ali, nobody else has been arrested so far.
In a few seconds, though, are all this Kenyan citizens?
Pardon?
Are those suspects all Kenyan citizens?
Yes. All the suspects are Kenyan citizens. Yeah. Mohammed, his wife, and her friend, his wife, Fatuma, and her friend, they're all Kenyan. Yes.
All right, Mike, thanks. We'll follow up on this story. Mike Njenga is a reporter with Kenya's Citizen TV. Now back in the United States, billionaire real estate mogul and political newcomer Donald Trump effectively wrapped up the Republican Party's presidential nomination Tuesday with a convincing victory in the Indiana primary. Trump easily defeated his main rival, Ted Cruz, who promptly suspended his campaign, leaving Trump on a smooth path to the party's nomination. Here's VOA's national correspondent Jim Malone.
Donald Trump delivered a crushing blow to Ted Cruz in Indiana, and Trump now stands as the presumptive Republican presidential nominee after a divisive and at times bitter Republican primary campaign.
It's a beautiful thing to watch and a beautiful thing to behold, and we're going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again.
Trump quickly shifted his focus to his likely Democratic opponent, Hillary Clinton, and to uniting the Republican Party.
And they're calling now, and they're calling us all, and they're saying, we'd love to get on the train, the Trump train they call it, but we'd love to get on the team.
Trump's victory marked the end of the line for Texas Senator Ted Cruz and his White House hopes. Cruz announced his decision to disappointed supporters in Indianapolis.
We gave it everything we've got, but the voters chose another path. And so, with a heavy heart, but with boundless optimism for the long-term future of our nation, we are suspending our campaign.
In the Democratic race, Bernie Sanders scored a narrow victory over frontrunner Hillary Clinton.
Millions of people today are beginning to stand up and fight back and demand a government which represents all of us, not just a handful of billionaires.
But even with the win, Sanders can do little to alter Clinton's huge lead in the battle for the Democratic Party nomination. Polls show Clinton would be a favorite in a general election matchup with Trump, but Trump's unpredictable nature could make it a close race, says John Fortier.
But Donald Trump, both as a personality, is a hard person to run against, and he potentially has this appeal that is across party. And those are the two strengths that he might have to draw on if he is going to make this race closer than it looks now.
Trump and Clinton are expected to focus more on each other in the weeks ahead, an early preview of the general election campaign.
We will start winning.
Well, joining us now with more perspective on the race for the White House is VOA national correspondent Jim Malone, who's been closely watching the campaign. Jim, welcome to Africa 54 after a long time.
Thank you,
sir.
What
a ride it has been, especially for the Republican Party.
Yeah, this part's over, but you know what? I think the bumpy ride is going to continue for a while. But look, Vincent, who would have thought a year ago when Donald Trump first got into the race that he was a serious contender, never mind going to win the Republican nomination, but he's on track to do just that.
In fact, some people were saying that he even himself, he probably didn't think he'll come this far.
There have been times it looks like he's been surprised by his success.
Exactly. But then what does this mean now in terms of what lessons can be taken from this victory?
A couple of things. First of all, Trump doesn't have the party fully behind him yet. He's going to need to do that. There are some signs he's winning over some of the establishment, the congressional people, senators, and so forth. But there's still a group that's against Trump. Even one or two are saying they might shift and vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't expect to see a lot of that, but Trump needs to heal the party. He already says, too, he's going to focus on Hillary Clinton. What can we expect? A very nasty, divisive campaign. Well, we've seen that already on the Republican side. More to come in the general.
Let's say he's a deal maker. So this is a guy who knows how to, make people kind of, be won over to him. Have you seen a change in the way he's been talking?
Yes, we've had the professionals have been getting more engaged in his campaign, toning him down a bit at times. But he's still unpredictable and volatile, so you never know what you're going to get. One of the first things he's going to have to do now is figure out who he wants to be as his running mate. He's saying he wants someone with government experience to help him cut deals in Congress, as you just noted. But that'll be one of the first major decisions he'll make as the presumptive nominee.
Very quickly, for our viewers abroad, foreign policy. Mm-hmm. Is this something that we may just wait to see?
We're going to have to. He gave a recent speech in Washington that raised more questions than it answered about foreign policy. Yeah. Seems a little incoherent. He'll be pressed to give details as we go along. I think we will see Trump
try to moderate his image, both at home and abroad, because he knows he's been divisive and his negatives are quite high right now.
And so what do you see for both parties right now? Clear path?
Yes, Hillary Clinton still needs to dispatch Bernie Sanders. She has negative problems of her own. It's going to be a fight to the finish among two candidates in November with high negatives. Whoever gets to depict the other as the worst is probably going to win.
An interesting game there. Thanks a lot, Jim,
you bet,
for joining us and making the things more clear.
Anytime.
Well, thanks to VOA's national correspondent Jim Malone, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
You bet.
Well, in business. Well, in business news now, that Ted Cruz has suspended his campaign and Trump presidency could become a reality. So what would be the potential impact on the stock market and international trade? For the details, Africa 54 business correspondent Jim Malandrino joins us live from New York. Hi, Jill.
Hey, Vincent. And just about 20 minutes ago, John Kasich has suspended his campaign. So following Trump's win in Indiana, which essentially locked him in for the Republican nomination, we saw a sell-off in S&P 500 futures because there's a widespread confusion about exactly what Trump would change with his policy. There's one thing markets hate. It is uncertainty, and uncertainty lends to the type of volatility that we saw earlier in the year. I would expect that volatility to extend to the election and probably beyond.
Now, what do people say would be probably the biggest concern with that Trump presidency regarding especially international trade?
Well, campaigning on Make America Great Again and adopting a protectionist point of view has certainly worked Americans that are frustrated with the establishment into a frenzy. But let's look at it from a purely economic perspective. Imposing tariffs on China, Mexico, and other nations raises fears of a trade war and how the U.S. economy will be harmed. Americans will see higher prices on imports, and other nations may retaliate with tariffs of their own, which harms U.S. companies that export to those nations.
So now, how should investors really prepare for a Trump presidency?
Well, perhaps the best way to position is to prepare for a Clinton win. According to the latest CNN ORC poll released just this morning, Clinton has a 13% lead over Trump, her largest lead since July. So for all intents and purposes, if the national election took place today, she would win. But if it moves in Trump's favor, I would look to buy defensive stocks like Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman because he wants to increase defense spending, whereas I would shy away from healthcare stocks since Trump wants to repeal Obamacare, and that would send shockwaves through the sector.
Jill, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino reporting live from New York. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, a one-on-one with a potential contender for the Ghanaian presidency. Stay with us.
I am Sheikha Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today, we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Welcome back to One-on-One with Peter Cloty now, Africa 54's new weekly segment. The veteran viewer journalist talks to newsmakers and delves into the topics and themes that are fresh, relevant, and important to our viewers. Ghanaian President John Mahama is facing a chorus of critics in the months before the November elections. Opposition parties, including the People's Progressive Party, suggest Mr. Mahama lacks the integrity and drive to move Ghana into the future, a charge he denies. In this week's One-on-One with Peter Cloty, Peter talks with Dr. Papa Kwesi Duom, the founder of the PPP and a potential contender for the presidency.
in November 7th, Ghanaians will be going to the polls.
Yes.
You have a party, a Progressive People's Party, or PPP.
Yes.
You are their presidential candidate. Realistically, what are your chances of winning the presidential election in Ghana?
The Progressive People's Party has not officially named anybody as its presidential candidate.
But isn't it a foregone conclusion since you are the leader of the party, you are the custodian of the party?
Well, it is likely, very likely, that I would be the presidential candidate. But then we are engaged in discussions with some high-profile individuals and some political parties to form a coalition.
An alliance?
Well, an alliance, we call it a coalition, same thing.
The New Patriotic Party, also known as the main political party, and the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, seem to be dominant ahead of the election. How challenging is it for your party to play a critical role, kingmakers perhaps, in the November 7 election?
Well, see, people like to say this, and unfortunately, media people, like to throw this around. But it's all fine. We know that it will be a challenging, a difficult task, but that's why we have set ourselves a task and a target that we think is achievable. And our target, essentially, we say that let's make sure that at the end of this election, it is clearly established that the PPP is the alternative. Now,
well, some people are saying that as an Nkrumahist, there are 2, 3, perhaps 4 Nkrumahist parties. Why don't you come together instead of having a splintered front with the Dankwa Buzia tradition, of course, with the National Democratic Congress, the ruling party at the moment? Why not start from uniting the Nkrumahist front?
It's not all just political parties. There are certain high-profile individuals in Ghana who are well known nationally, but who also command respect and audience and so on in their areas of origin. So we are courting all of these people. Now we are in many more villages, and we are in healthy competition with others. So our ability as leaders to control these many more people is now under stress. So let no one sit anywhere and think that, oh, as for those Ghanaians, they will take anything, and that everything in the end will be okay.
Are you confident the elections will be free, fair, credible, transparent, meet international standards?
I cannot have confidence in a system that paired the institution. You know, we haven't given them the right tools for them to even determine who belongs in a register, who doesn't belong, and where we also know that the register is bloated, is not accurate, and so on and so forth. So what we are left with is goodwill.
Before we leave, let me ask you this. What are your expectations for the November 7 general election?
What I'm also expecting is that we, as Ghanaians, will let our character show. The good side will show. That no matter be the case, that we'll take the election to be just an election. And that life must go on. And that we will decide that whatever be the conclusion, that we'll work with it. We'll work with it and ensure that the land remains peaceful, we strengthen the country, and we all work for the people to become more prosperous than before.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, small-scale farmers are among the poorest and the hungriest in the world. Yet in Africa, agricultural communities make up 65% of Africa's labor force and account for 32% of gross domestic product. Efforts by governments and the development community at large to support small-scale farming in sub-Saharan Africa are not yielding significant results. Now, for perspective into some alternative ways that could help find lasting solutions to tackle challenges facing Africa's farming communities, I'm joined by Roland Fomdan. He's a social entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Greenhouse Ventures. Welcome to Africa 54, Mr. Fomdan. Yeah?
Yes, you're very right. Thank you for having me.
Now, you know, farming is a critical sector for the African continent. African nations are literally sustained by small-scale farmers.
Right.
What are, in few words, what are some of the challenges these farmers really have to face every day?
Yes, farmers face a number of issues. First of all, production. Having constant production every day, every time, and prices, it's a very big problem. Seasonality also affects farming because that also affects prices and fluctuations. So, for example, in Cameroon, you would have, during the mango season, a 50-kilogram bag of mangoes would cost about $4 if you convert that. And during the off-season, you probably have no mangoes and they even get more expensive. If one mango of those is sold here in the U.S., you would probably sell for about $3.50 if it's been processed and dried. So it's a very, very big challenge because small-scale farmers, they work the hardest and they're not involved in the value chain of the produce. And that makes it in such a way that you have farmers who work, grow all the food and actually don't have much to eat, or what they get to consume. It's very poor quality.
Now, you've been working to try and see how you can, you know, sort out some of those issues. Just can you lay out some of the strategies that you think can work across the continent?
Yes. First of all, we had to understand what was the underlying problem in agriculture. First, it's involving a population that is very, very active. Today in Africa, you have the older generation that is still involved in farming. And that is because farming is still done the way it was done 500 years ago. Youths are totally disengaged from this farming activity. So first of all, we have to find ways to involve more youths in farming so that you can increase productivity. Because the older generation, they're getting tired. They have other things to worry about.
So you want to try and make it, not look like something people do because they have no education, they're poor, and they have nothing better to do.
Yes, you know, that has actually been a stereotype. In America, if you talk to a farmer, you don't have that stereotype. Yeah. You understand? In Africa, of course, when you talk of someone being a farmer, someone who lives in the village, they're poor, they're illiterate, and all of that. And it's been a stereotype that has affected farming for a very, very long time.
So what more, because we don't have a lot of time, really can be done to first to give the incentive, but also to make it worth their time and their energy?
Yes, creating structures or infrastructures that can actually involve farmers and actually enabling them to produce year-round and also engaging them in ways they can actually sell at competitive prices. It's very, very important.
Now, the governments have not succeeded very much in this area. How do you come in?
Good. Governments usually haven't solved all the problems of several communities. Where we come in is where we say we have introduced a technology that is novel, a technology that is very sustainable. It is friendly. But more so, our greenhouses have been used to grow more per unit area. We grow more healthier crops and crops that could be sold at a premium on any market. So in such a way, you are engaging farmers in a way that they grow, they also consume what they produce, and also they can actually sell at competitive prices on any markets globally.
So you are enabling them to actually grow throughout the year.
That's right.
And hopefully take advantage of prices when they're of more benefit to them.
Very true. But more so, we have made in such a way that we are looking to stabilize the prices we have on the market. So we focus on three main areas: production, aggregation, and then post-harvest management, which are the key things that once you can engage these three areas, and then you're actually being able to engage farmers in the value chain of the produce.
We really need to appreciate and love our farmers. They feed the entire continent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us and giving us this insight.
Thank you.
Well, Roland Fomdan is a social entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Greenhouse Ventures. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Bring it! Canada's Prime Minister issues a viral Invictus Games challenge. We'll be right back.
الآن أمام المجتمع الدولي وضرورة ولا نعطيها ان شاء الله عنكم ماليين هذه.
I decided to put the hijab on the door because I've never really seen one like it before.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Now, the countdown to the Invictus Games for sick and injured troops is on, and Canada means business.
I'd show our friends in the U.S. and the UK how Canada brings it. Your Majesty, Prince Harry, President and Mrs. Obama.
Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wasted no time in delivering a direct message to his country's competitors. In a video posted to his Twitter account, Trudeau directs some trash talk at the US and the UK before dropping to the floor and showing off his push-up skills with Team Canada. Britain's Prince Harry was inspired to launch the international sporting event after serving as an officer in the British Army in Afghanistan. Trudeau has become something of a heartthrob since his election last year. Well, next up, the uses for 3D printing seem to be endless. Children born with ear deformities could soon receive prosthetic ear for less than the cost of a pair of glasses, thanks to a new technology being developed in Australia. Researchers from Queensland University of Technology are using 3D printing to make prosthetic ears to help prevent hearing loss for children born with a congenitally underdeveloped external ear. A 3D prosthetic ear made from medical silicone and attached magnetically or with surgical glue. Eventually, researchers will make an ear using cells from the child. The organ will be grown in a bioreactor and surgically planted back into the child, along with the hearing technology.
You can then feed.
Well, and in other tech news, a new invention will allow you to track and monitor the growth of a tree planted using the ashes of a loved one. Well, its developers say it gives new meaning to the idea of life after death. Two brothers from Spain have already launched a biodegradable urn, which allows you to plant oak, maple, or pine seeds using a mixture of soil and ashes. The growth cycle of the tree, as well as the temperature, water, seed, and humidity levels can be assessed by a user anywhere using the app on a phone or a tablet. Prices for the urn and incubator start at $550, and that is what is trending today. And that's our show. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords.
Here is a story that has to do with defects or problems with cars.
Listen for the word that means to take back something. Recall.
They had meetings over this defect. They shared complaints over this defect. Yet there was no investigation by the government and no recall by General Motors until 10 years later.
Recall. It is a word that means to ask people officially to return something.
In our story, there were major problems with some General Motors cars. The man says the U.S. government and the car company took too long to issue a recall, so the cars could be fixed.
Now, when you hear the word recall, your American English will be good enough to know what this news word means.